That's all right. You can always do that. So anyway, we're going to talk about one, the requirements for a micro 40. Could you move forward, please? Sit in one of the first two rows, since there's not 400 of us. Let me just talk a little bit about what you have to do to get a micro 40 grade. If you are registered in micro 40, you have to attend 4 micro 40 instructor help session, 4 hours. And you have to do 10 hours of micro 40 lab prep with Naira. And finally, the third requirement is you have to do the take-home final exam and put it in your final exam packet. Okay, if you haven't finished, if you're a checker, you don't have to do this. But you do need your lab record book signed, so don't forget to have me sign it next week if you're a checker. What if you attended the micro 40 instructor help, you haven't finished the 10 hours, you're not a checker. All right, then you include in your final exam packet a contract saying you'll finish whatever hours you have left before the second week of the fall term. And sign it. And then you'll still get the maximum grade in micro 40. So how do you get a grade in micro 40? If you don't turn in the final exam, you get an I. If you do turn it in and you've done at least 4 hours of instructor help, but you haven't completed this, then if you do a contract, you'll get an A. If you've done 8 hours and you don't turn in a contract, you'll get a B. If you've done 6 hours, 6 to 7 hours, you'll get a C. And if you've done less than 5 hours, you'll get a D in micro 40. So micro 40 is pass-fail. Could you move up to one of these seats close in? Whose book bag? Get it out. Chairs are for people, not book bags. All right, so almost everybody has done at least 4 hours of micro 40, so that should be. How do we tell? We this sign in. So if you came in late before you leave today, don't forget to sign last name, first name, your lecture, section number, and the time you arrived. And then on this, if you've done a checker, I need to sign with a Sharpie on the inside cover of your lab record book. If you're not a checker, you need to have signed in with Naira and done at least 10 hours with her. If you haven't done 10 hours, you need to put a contract that you will complete your hours before the second week of fall semester, and everybody must put in their final exam packet that's taking micro 40, the take-home final exam. And to find the take-home final exam, probably the best place to get it, there are 2 places to get it, but one of them doesn't print very well. If you go to the old website, and you go down here to final exam and notes for micro 40, click on it. That will tell you what to do. There's the little lecture that you have to see, which by the way will help you on the final exam, because that very same lecture, similar to it, will be in class and before the final, and will be on the final. And then here's a little instruction about how to use our autoclave. And then here's the test. Click on the test, print it out, fill it in, and put it in your final exam packet. And that takes care of micro 40 final exam. The alternative way to find this is to go to our website, go down to M40 Final Exam Explained, This tells you about it. This tells you the purpose and the theory. This tells you how to use our autoclave. Same thing as the other one. And then you print out the final exam at the bottom. You can cut and paste it if you wish. Either way is fine. It's just it prints out a little bit better on the other one than on this one. But again, it doesn't matter which place you go to it. So does anyone have questions about microforting? Yes?
I've given her twice in the past few days and she hasn't replied. I came today.
Yeah, she should be here between 9 and 4 today. If there is a teensy-weensy little problem, I don't know if I should say. Myra had a cancer diagnosis and she's been under treatment, and sometimes the medication makes her sick, and so she doesn't come. So if you keep a copy of your emails, and if you do it like 4 times and she still doesn't return, then just send me a copy of that in your final exam packet, and I'll give you credit for it. But don't tell her I told you this stuff, because it's personal. All right. Anyone else have a question about microforting? All right. So make sure you sign in today to get credit for that. And I want it. Make sure you're sitting next to someone, because I'm going to hand out some papers from a previous term for you to share. And would you sit next to her? So you two share number 1. Notice they're numbered. I want them back, little thieves. Okay. Okay, so I guess you guys can share. And I wouldn't share with her either. She doesn't often shower. Could you set it on the second row at the end? Huh? Oh, okay, what? Because I'm in the middle of the class. Well, there's a microforting sign.
But there's one
And
on.
have you done any of it? Okay, so what you probably best thing to do is right now.
But you can ask her. But there is one on the website. Exactly.
Oh, you're talking about the microphone. Okay, all right. Just put your microphone on. Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about the unknown paper today. Yes.
I don't have paper.
See, that's too bad. Here's one. All right, so first we're going to talk about the references that you need, and somebody's got my 9th. Who's got the 9th? Who's got the 8th? Who's got the 9th? There it is. All right, would you hold it up? This is the 9th edition. It's the latest one of Berge's determinative. One good thing about it is that a lot of information is in tables, which makes it very easy to transfer to your table. What's bad about it is it's horrible for gram positives. So you really cannot use it as a reference for gram positives. There is 2 volumes, there's 4 volumes of the Berge systematic, which is incredibly good for anybody, gram positives or negatives. Volume 1 is gram negatives, I think, and yeah, volume 1 is gram negatives and volume 2 is gram positives. And it is the best reference of all of them. And so anybody can use it. Remember though, it has a lot more information than you need, but it does have almost everything we do in it. So you can use it. Overall, the best reference of all of them is the 8th edition. That's where I would start if I were you. For both gram positive and gram negative, the 8th edition and systematic are extremely good. The 7th edition is online. So you don't even have to go to a library to get the 7th edition. And to find it online, you go to Unknown Paper on the old website and click down at the bottom of the page, see an example paper. Then in the upper right hand corner there it says Bergey's Determinative 7th edition online. So you can get your reference and the information to make your table out online for 7th edition. What is 7th good for? It's good for gram positives and gram negatives. It's what we would call a C+. While the 8th edition is a B+, the 7th edition is a C+, and the 6th edition is a C- book. So the 6th edition, which is this one here, 6th edition is a little bit difficult to use because the index, it's the first time they put an index in it, but it's a C- book for both gram negatives and gram positives. So for gram positives, you're going to be rather limited in what kind of references you can use. You cannot use the 9th edition, it is no good. You can use the 7th, 6th, 7th, 8th edition of Bergey's Determinative, or first edition of Bergey's Systematic. What else do I want to tell you about the references? Again, these are general guidelines. You have to look up your specific unknown in each one, make a little chart of your genus and species information, and see which one matches your unknown the best. The results that you got the best. Then that's going to be your primary reference. Just a minute. And so that means you have to get them all and do a little research. Now, if the genus says generally non-modal, but your species says modal, go with the species information. The genus information is important and is supposed to apply to everything in that genus, but there are some minor exceptions. So if your species contradicts a little information in your genus, of course you go with the species. Now what was your question?
We need three sources,
Three.
right? So
Well, you need 3 on your data page.
yes.
And one of them has to closely match your unknown.
So if we have a gram negative and we decide to choose the
Well, you don't decide. You make a chart of all of them, and you use the chart that is most match your results. Then you can pick any other 2 that have at least 4 or 5 results in it.
In your opinion, what's the best book for gram negative?
I think in all of them, Systematic or McFadden, 3rd edition is best for anything, followed by the 8th edition. But gram negative and 9th usually is extremely good because it even will include the spirit blue auger lipase test and the amylase, which you don't find often in any of the other books.
So what you said?
Okay, listen carefully again. You're going to have to look up your genus and species in every book. You're going to have to make yourself a little table, which you were supposed to learn how to do in the library assignment. Then you're going to pick the one that most matches your results as your first column of reference. The other 2 columns of reference must have at least 4 or 5 and must closely, not most closely, match your information. Generally speaking, Systematic and 9th edition are the best for gram negative. So I would make my charts first from there, followed by the 8th. Okay, so let's talk about the paper. Everybody has one to look at. And I'll tell you what I look at to grade. Of course, the title page is very easy. All you have to do is put your number and the name of your microbe, and your microbe must be underlined, and the title, remember, even in the title, the species is not capitalized. Then your last name, your college, your ID number, the semester, the date submitted, phone number, and email. All that goes on the title page. If you'll turn to the second page, and you'll notice that most of these have two title pages. One has comments for grading, and then the second one is the corrected copy. There are two ways the abstract can be typed. It can be typed on a page by itself, justified on all margins, directly in the center of the page with the word abstract above it. Or it can be typed, let's hope I have one, that above the introduction. We have it all on a page by itself. Page by itself. Anybody have one typed above the introduction? Here's one. Or it can be typed like this. Again, blocked in, at least 5 to 10 on each side from the regular margin. And remember, in the APA manual, they'll actually, all the nursing schools require that everything be typed according to the APA manual, which you can go to a copy of right here. And it has very restrictive rules, such as every page must have a running head, and they actually have a width, number of inches, and it must be 2 on either side of the abstract, and 2 above. This one would get an F. That's 1.5 above. So I'm not that restrictive. I don't take a ruler out and measure your margins, but remember, when you get into nursing school, they will. Everything must be exact to APA manual, and if it's not, you get a 0.
That's only for the abstract or the whole?
The whole paper.
So that is wrong right there, because it's.
Yeah,
not-
theirs should have a 2-inch margin at
And
the
also
top.
the stuff underneath it is not 2 inches from the sides.
Yes, but here it is, and there it is. It's not there and there. But that's just for nursing school. For me, I don't care. All I care is that it be blocked in above and the introduction be typed double spaced. There be no title here, no title abstract, and no title of the paper. Now, the abstract is very easy to write. It just says the day you received your unknown, and that you did the isolation experiment where most people did the 4 parallel lines with a quadrant streak. You did it aseptically and sterilely. Then you incubated it overnight, and you did the dots or us, where you did a gram stain to see what your unknown shape and gram stain was. You then transferred it to a slant, incubated overnight, and we put it in the refrigerator, and you came back and did the purity check on it. So you would say something like, I received unknown number 6 on April the 5th, 2013. At that time, I aseptically poured a sterile nutrient auger plate with melted auger and allowed it to cool. I then received my unknown in a slant where it contained Staph aureus and some unknown microbe for which I was to spend time to identify. I streaked for isolation on my nutrient auger plate using the 4-stripe quadrant streak method. I taped the plate shut, left it in the incubator upside down at 37 degrees overnight, after which it was referred to refrigeration until I returned to class. When I returned to class, I did 2 different gram stains on different areas of the slant to prove that I had the same organism, the same shape, and the same gram stain, which I confirmed with my instructor. After that time, I maintained my working slant in log phase for testing by keeping it in refrigeration for 10 to 14 days and subculturing into another slant that it was incubated overnight for 12 hours and returned to refrigeration. I performed the following test. And then you list every test you did in the class. You list every test you did. Let's see if I can make this one bigger. Control, and after each test, and remember the test must be alphabetized. After each test, you put the result and a comma. And so you're going to have a terribly long run-on sentence in the middle of your abstract. At the end of that sentence, you'll say something like, using these results and the dichotomous key for genera provided on the microblog website, parentheses, Hicks, comma, 2013, and Berge's manual, and then you list which one you used that was most close to your unknown. I identified my unknown number 7 as, and you write the last 2 words of the abstract should be your unknown. And it should be underlined, and the species should be small letter, and the genus capitalized. So that's how to write an abstract. It's not terribly hard. You're just going to put into words those first 3 or 4 experiments. What are they? You received it, you isolated it, you did the dots or us, and then you did the purity and maintained log growth. Then you performed all these tests. Then you used the dichotomous key. Then you used an addition of Berge's to determine your species most closely, and that was your unknown. So the abstract can stand alone, separate from the paper, so anyone can know what you did and what you got. Now, how to do it, they have to order the paper. So abstracts tell you what you did, what your results were, and then if someone likes the abstract, they can order the paper to learn how you did it. All right, the next section is the introduction, and remember the introduction doesn't have the title, Introduction. And it's typed double-spaced, and you can start it on a page by itself. If you put the abstract on a page by itself with a title, or you can type it as this paper did directly below the abstract. So this paper put the abstract and then began the introduction. Now what goes in the introduction? Why we do unknowns and how we do them. So why we do unknowns is to prove Koch's postulates, that you can prove that a particular microbe causes a particular disease, and the first step in that is identification. And that's what you're doing. The first step in Koch's postulates, which is identifying the microbe. Then, of course, once you know its name, you can treat it. So in this introduction should go a discussion of the following things. Maintaining aseptic technique, that means maintaining your sterility, like wearing your partial universal precautions, heating your loop, the entire wire, flaming the lip, keeping the plates closed as much as possible, those kinds of things to maintain just the bacteria that you have. Maintaining log growth by only a 12-hour incubation and then refrigeration until it's about 10 days old, and then redoing that whole thing. And then what else should be in here? Let's see. I guess that's just about it, except, don't forget that you're using incomplete universal precautions. You can talk about microbes in general. The key thing you do not do in the introduction is you don't discuss your unknown. You don't even mention the name of your unknown. This is generally why and how we do unknowns and the purpose of this paper. And it doesn't run on forever. So you can be relieved to know I don't want a 5-page introduction. I want more than a half a page. But I don't want a 5-page. I say a page, page and a half would be about right. All right, you can also discuss the fact that in this class we don't use pathogens, but we do use microbes that are in the same genus as pathogens, so you understand the methodology. Anyone have questions about the introduction? And you can look at the introduction online and, get an idea. You can't cut and paste it, of course. All right, so the next section is called the methods. And remember, methods can be typed 2 different ways. Don't type it the prose way, which is writing a story referenced of everything you ever did. Please don't do that. Just put it in a table, like this. You have 3 columns. The first column is every test you did in your class this term that got a result. Now, if you came in, you were sick when I put out gelatin or litmus milk, and when you came in, there was none, then it should not be in this list. Everything that's in this list, you should have a result for on the data page. So remember, the first column of the methods table is the same first column as the data table. All your tests that you perform in alphabetical order. All right, so does everybody know how to make a table?
Yes.
Okay, if you go to Word, and all you have to do, let me see if I have one on here. Sadly, yeah, there I do. Hopefully it'll open up since it's never been opened on this. You're going to type your paper, all right, and then you're going to get to the place you want to put your table, and all you have to do is just insert a table there and tell it how to do the table, tell it how many rows, or you can even insert an Excel spreadsheet there. Key point when you're typing a table. In this paper, you do not start a table in the middle of a page. In other words, whatever your last information is, you start a new page when you start the table. And tables must be removable from your paper, because lots of times when they give a presentation on the paper, they hand everybody out a copy of the tables. So the tables must be removable. What do I mean by that? You don't run into a table at the top, and you don't start typing the next section at the bottom of a table. It must be on pages by themselves. So if you can fit a table on one page, that's great. But if it runs to 2, don't start the next section in the middle of the next page. So you do a page break at the beginning, before a table, and a page break at the end of a table, so that it sits by itself in your paper. All right, on the second column of the methods page, the second column of the methods is how you learn, how you did each experiment. And the only place you can find out how you did it is from the blog site or the micro website. So you have to give a unique identifier in the second column for a web reference. And the unique identifier is everything after the web address. So if I was going to give on the methods page here, here's the title. Remember, it does have a title at the top of it. And then it has your tests. And then it has the reference. And then it has anything that you did that was not the same as in your reference, and this is called exceptions. So if you did the VP and it said do it on day 10 to 14, and you did it on day 15, you have to put that in exceptions. All right, so what you do here is you put an asterisk there, and then at the bottom of your reference of your methods page, of your table, you put the whole address of the main website. If you're using the old website, it would be http://faculty.lacitycollege.edu/HicksDR. Now, when you went to one of the pages of the website, you can use one of these. when you went to the page of the website that was about, let's say, EMB auger plate, here's what you would do. You would go to the website, click on the unknown paper, not unknown paper, shoot, unknown tests. You would then go to the EMB plate, which I believe is somewhere down here, eosin methylene blue. Click on that, and at the top of this page, it gives you that's just how to pour a plate. There, at the top of the page, it tells you what the unique identifier for this page is. And for this one, remember, it's always everything after Hicks DR. So for this page, what you would put is emb.htm. So on the reference, if I was referencing eosin methylene blue plate, then I would put asterisk dot emb.htm. Does everybody understand how to do it? It's not hard. Every page where the directions on how to do a test are, there is a unique identifier at the top of that page. That unique identifier goes in the reference column. Yes?
That dot is one dot after the asterisk.
Yes, you need the dot.
How come these papers that we got don't have it that way?
What do they do?
They have the whole thing in there.
Because they did it wrong and I took off points. The paper that you're looking at, for an example, did have it, but because so many people cheated by just copying my example paper, I took them out. So if you go to this unknown paper that we're using as an example, hopefully it'll load here. Sometimes it's long. Going backwards. Come on, baby. That way you wouldn't know I ain't bigger. There we go.
It should be on your blog spot,
No, I don't think.
the final.
Well, unknown test cards are there, so anyway. So you would go to each one of these for catalase pay test, the unique identifier is catalase-test.htm. Actually, you're right, it doesn't have this, it has this. All right, so everybody know how to do that? All right, so I don't think this one gives an example paper, but let's see.
I got one from your Hicks blogspot page. I printed it out.
There was a term paper?
Yeah.
Oh, good, okay. Let's see.
Right here. It's
Do you remember under what button it was?
Under the,
Comprehensive final exam?
yeah.
Yeah, it should be there. How to write your answer on now.
Go down. Go down. All the way down. Oh, no. Yeah, I got it from there.
Oh,
Right
there
there.
it is, right there. So big we couldn't even see it. All right.
Yeah, by smart students.
Yeah. I don't really like the fact she didn't draw lines in her methods, but anyway, there's where it is. And you'll notice that this one that we used here actually had some of the accurate ones, and this is what it is for the iron test. It's iron %20 test.htm, and that's to make sure that students actually go to the top of each page and check. So
I think you're not supposed to
Well, I'm the teacher, they're not.
So do it that way?
Yeah. Remember, it depends on how you do it at the bottom down here. If you leave it off like this, then the line goes there. If you put this like that, then you can leave it off. Yeah, it's supposed to, remember, computers don't allow mistakes. So you must be able to copy all of this and add what's here and go to that page. So that's what it means. All right, so we've talked about how to make the methods page. Let's go to the data page. And I can see what she did now. She centered every one of these tests. It's better to move them with the left margin and put them in. And then she put it in a table and then had the table white out the lines. Remember, you can make the lines any color you want, so she made them white against the white paper. Regardless, smart student, I like that. So remember, whatever test you did should be here, alphabetized, and then your results in the first column, and the Bergey's manual that most matches yours in the column after that, and then 2 other references that have at least 4 results. Now, remember, the most common error on this data page is everybody does it, and I don't want you to. So let's talk about the most common error on the data page, and that is, yes, they put their tests. Yes, they put their results. And then they start making the mistakes. So this would be the 6th maybe, and this would be the 7th, and this would be the 8th edition of Bergey's. And let's say that we have phenol red lactose. And then EMB, and then hectoin, and Cligger's iron, and litmus milk, and then ONPG, somewhere in their test. And over here, they said they got a positive for that, and they probably got a positive. Maybe one of these didn't work exactly like it should. Remember, everything working perfectly makes me very nervous. And on the 6th edition, it said all of these, it said lactose was positive. So that means that every lactose test, remember EMB has a lactose test on it, and hectoin has lactose and H2S on it, so the lactose. All these references for every lactose test should be positive because that's glucose, lactose, and hydrogen sulfide. So this one, even if you've got a negative, since this lactose is positive, every lactose test is going to be positive in your references. So, in the tests that have multiple tests within them, what are they? Hectoin. What does it have? It has a lactose, it has an H2S, and it has a color of the bacteria growing on the agar. KIA has glucose with or without gas, lactose, and hydrogen sulfide. Litmus milk has lactose and casease. Let's see, is there any other one? EMB is just lactose. So remember that you can't put hectoin positive or negative. You have to put the results for each test that's on that. So there'll be no result for these. The test underneath will have the results. Finally, on the plates. Remember to call the plates by their name, but in parentheses, put the enzyme they test for. So you would have skim, milk, agar, and then in parentheses, that would be casease. And let's see, hectoin. No, not that one. Spirit glue. Agar. And in the end, in parentheses, it should say lipase. Because in your reference books, it's only going to call it lipase. In the 9th edition, they'll have a result for casease and lipase, but they won't have one for skim milk agar. And of course, then the starch agar plate, it's amylase in parentheses. So, particularly in the 9th edition, they do give these plate results as enzyme results, not as the name of the agar. Alright, so on the data page, what if you get something that no one else has ever gotten on Earth? Ever. Your result was your urea was negative, and the 6th said it should be positive, and the 7th said it was positive, and the 8th said it was supposed to be positive. Then you put an asterisk in front of it, and down at the bottom of the page you say, this unusual result will be discussed in the 3rd paragraph of the conclusion. Now, what if one of your books said it's positive, the other one said it could be negative, and the other one said positive and you got negative? You don't have to explain anything and there's no asterisk. Only if you got a result no one on Earth has ever gotten before.
What if you got something and you can't explain why it's wrong?
You can. There are very common excuses, which is why we call it the excuse paragraph. All right, so any questions about how to do the data? Oh, one super thing that everybody forgets. You don't want 3 points taken off for not putting a key to symbols used. I wonder if they did. I don't think they did on this one. So remember, if you use this, you got to tell me what that means. If you use this, you got to tell me what that means. If you used X, you got to tell me what that means. Big D, little d. Those are symbols that all these books use, and positive does not mean 100% positive. In most books it means 82 to 97% positive. Now where do you find that information? Almost always the symbols that are used in a book are either just inside the cover, printed on the cover like on the 9th edition, like in here, or in the first few pages they will say a key to symbols used in this book. So that's usually where it is. And you're going to have to look for it. Sometimes it's right on the table. In a big reference book like this, I know in the 9th edition it's in the first few pages they tell you what key to symbols used.
So for each edition that we use, we have to put it, right? Because the 6 editions...
If they use different symbols and it means different things, then you have to include that. Now you can, I mean, smart people do, is they take the symbols in the different books and they organize it and make their own. So they say, in my paper, positive like this, positive means 99 to 100% positive. And positive alone means 87 to 99% positive. So you can make up your own and keep them consistent, or you can just copy the symbols from the edition and then put what it means at the bottom.
But what I'm saying is there needs to be 3 of those, right? Because we're going to use 3
No.
references. Yeah, we're going to
No.
use 3 different.
You're not listening to me. Burgess usually keeps it consistent. So One edition, 6th, 7th, and 8th will probably use the very same symbols, so you wouldn't need 3 if they all use the same set of symbols. If each book uses a different one, like this one that I handed out, this little sheet of paper that I handed out, doesn't use positive and negative. What it uses is even more confusing. It uses NC for no change, which is negative. It uses Y for ferments, which is positive. It uses YG for ferments with gas. It uses positive for 100% positive. And it uses this for either could be correct. All in one little table. So, like I said, the table will tell you. And you can, most people just do it the easy way. What's the easy way? You copy the symbols from the table, from the addition, and then include it in a key. All right, so the next section is the only section that is any difficulty. I mean, all of this, you're just copying down your results and going to a reference book and filling it in the table. Yeah?
I have a question. When we make our own symbols, how do we know if it's 99 to 100% positive?
It says in the front of the book. What the symbol means.
Oh, we're just changing. Okay.
Yeah. All right, so the last section is the conclusion section. And it's extremely specific, what goes in each paragraph. And what goes in each paragraph is the first paragraph, first of all, you type it with the word conclusion at the top, and it's double spaced, and the references are the same way, author's last name, date published, etc. But the first paragraph is your dichotomous key from the website. In words. So you take it, in other words, the first paragraph of the conclusion is how you got your genus. So you say, using the dichotomous key provided by the microblog site, parentheses Hicks, comma, 2013, parentheses closed, I determined that a gram-negative rod which fermented glucose was citrate positive, hydrogen sulfide negative, and Vogue's Proskauer negative was Proteus, the genus Proteus. So you can make, and yeah, I know, sometimes it'll be a one-sentence paragraph, which again will drive a English teacher nuts. Too bad, they're not here. All right, so that's the first paragraph. It is a word story of your dichotomous key. Second paragraph is the most important, and that is, how did you get your genus? And the answer to this question is always one or two tests. In other words, in looking at the several genera, several species in my genera, I determined that my unknown had a motility and a hydrogen sulfide that matched the species Flexneri. And the other species had a different combination of hydrogen sulfide and motility result. So it is always one or two tests that separates the different species. Oh, yeah, I meant species, thank you. And be sure, of course, to reference it. Now the third paragraph of the conclusion is what we call the excuse paragraph. We used to call it the funky results, but people typed into their paper funky results. And you know that should never be in a paper. So here are the excuses. If you got a negative, and it should be positive, then these are the most common errors. Your unknown was dead from drying out in the refrigerator by the time you did that test. 2, your loop or needle was too hot when you inoculated. The media itself was out of date or prepared wrong.
So we choose one of these?
No, you make a list. Because you don't know which one of these it was. 4th, if it used reagents, the reagents were bad. Only if you used them, remember. If you didn't use them in that test, you can't say reagents because reagents were. 5th reason, you did it wrong. Like the people that inoculated their methyl red and then added the methyl red reagent and put it in the incubator. They did it wrong, so they're not going to get the right result. And then the last and least likely, and you need to say it's least likely, your unknown mutated. Remember, mutation takes thousands of years, so it's unlikely that is a reason for you getting a negative result. What if you got a positive and it should be negative? That one doesn't have any excuses. There's just one super big one. Most likely it was contaminated. Probably from the air, something else, but it was contaminated. Remember, you can't make something out of nothing. So, it had to have some other microbe in there to cause a positive result. So, 99% of the time, if you got a positive and it should have been negative, your culture was contaminated by something from the air, or you were didn't get it properly isolated in your dots or us experiment, or maybe you inadvertently stuck your working culture in the incubator and it grew up some of the things that fell in it. And then the second and the least likely and highly unlikely is it mutated. So if you got a positive when it should be negative, there are a few things that can happen to make that happen. All right, so that's the 3rd paragraph, and you're explaining away any of your double asterisks. I mean, your asterisk from the data page. All right? Now, the 4th and other paragraphs, 4th, 5th, anything, subsequent paragraphs after the 4th, you've got to put who discovered your unknown, or who named it, or where it's normally found in nature. And then finally, the most important thing to put in here, oh, I love this, the species for the genus Gobbledygook negotia. This is what my assistant did. I told him, don't tell him too much of the information. Just put some fake stuff in there. So she put, this species was negotia of the genus Gobbledygook. Sense of humor. All right, so anyway, who named it, when it was first discovered, where it normally lives in nature, and most importantly, you need to relate it to a pathogen. My unknown was Shigella paradysentery. The reason the teacher gave it to me was because this is highly related to the pathogen Shigella dysentery, which causes hundreds and thousands of deaths in the world every day. We are not allowed to work with extreme pathogens, and therefore we couldn't work with the actual disease, so we worked with one that looked like it and was in the same genus but a different species. So remember, in the 4th and subsequent paragraph, you have to put interesting information about your unknown. And what's interesting? Who named it, when it was first discovered, where it grows in nature, and then how it relates to a pathogen that is dangerous to people. Usually it's right in, in your list of species, there is a dangerous one. It says causes horrible human death or whatever. But yes, you can do that too. You can go to ask.com and put in species of the genus blah, blah, blah that cause significant human disease. All right, the last part is the reference page. And oops, these people typed it wrong. Well, one of them typed. One of their references is right. All right, at the top you have the word reference. It's usually not all caps, but anyway, this is the way they should be typed. Remember, you put these in alphabetical order. You don't put them in any numbers out here. And if there's more than 3 authors, you put the title of the book, not the list of editors or authors. And notice the title of the book is the first word is the only one capitalized. Followed by the edition, when published, who published, where published, and then the pages in order that you quoted them. And how it's typed is every line after the first is indented 5. So this is the way it should be typed. Within a reference, it's single space. Between, it's double space. Second and third lines are indented 5 spaces. And you've got to have 6. And if you want to know what the 6 that most people use, they use a quote, they use coaches' postulates from their textbook. They use some sort of maybe color or information about the chemistry of one test from their atlas, so they can quote their atlas. They quote the website, and then of course you have to have 3 books, 3 reference books, either Bergey's, McFadden, Systematic, or, and remember, if you have a famous microbe, there could be a reference book out there that you could use that's online that is all about E. coli or whatever, if it gives at least 5 results. How to type a website. Remember, last name, first name, the date that the website was accessed, the year, then the name of the website, then the date it was accessed, and the time, plus the exact page of the main website address. Okay, so that's generally the paper. Now I'll take questions on the paper. Anybody have any questions about anything about what goes where or how to type any particular thing? Oh, let me talk about cheating. What is cheating on this paper? Claiming that you came up with coaches' postulates without referencing it, saying that you devised it from your own brain, which means you didn't reference a major scientific discovery. Okay, so failing to reference something. Making up your data. You didn't do 3/4 of the test, so you just make up something. Or filling in the blanks on the data page under your references with just random positives and negatives to make it look pretty. Remember, sometimes the references only have 4 out of 25 tests. Leave it blank if they don't reference it. But remember, you must know that EMB is a lactose test, Hecoin's a lactose test, Flicker's iron is a lactose test, and phenol red lactose is a lactose test. So if it says ferments lactose, all of those references would be positive. Okay, what was your question? Somebody had one? Yeah.
After the first paragraph, write in parentheses your name.
Right. On the, yeah, when you were dichotomous key. Yeah. Other things? Minor little problems? Whiny little problems? Everybody get their grade sheet? Be sure to check your grade sheet and circle anything that the number doesn't match. Remember, I have dyslexia, so every once in a while I will give somebody a 7 that got a 70. Not a good idea. So, and if in your Micro 1, for some reason I didn't scan the Micro 1 practice midterms, so you need to bring me those so I can include it because I gave you a 10. Okay, so if the numbers don't match, bring me, circle it on the grade sheet, bring me the paper to show me what it should be, and I'll change my grade book. Yes?
to clarify, on the, there was an option.
That's all right. You can always speed it up. So anyway, we're going to talk about, one, the requirements for a micro 40. Could you move forward, please? Sit in one of the first two rows, since there's not 400 of us. Let me just talk a little bit about what you have to do to get a micro 40 grade. If you are registered in micro 40, you have to attend 4 micro 40 instructor help session, 4 hours. And you have to do 10 hours of micro 40 lab prep with Naira. And finally, the third requirement is you have to do the take-home final exam and put it in your final exam packet. Okay, if you haven't finished, if you're a checker, you don't have to do this. But you do need your lab record book signed, so don't forget to have me sign it next week if you're a checker. What if you attended the Micro 40 instructor help, you haven't finished the 10 hours, you're not a checker. All right, then you include in your final exam packet a contract saying you'll finish whatever hours you have left before the second week of the fall term. And sign it. And then you'll still get the maximum grade in Micro 40. So how do you get a grade in Micro 40? If you don't turn in the final exam, you get an I. If you do turn it in and you've done at least 4 hours of instructor help, but you haven't completed this, then if you do a con, it's horrible for gram positives. So you really cannot use it as a reference for gram positives. There is 2 volumes, there's 4 volumes of the PaperRevB systematic, which is incredibly good for anybody, gram positives or negatives. Volume 1 is gram negatives, I think, and volume 1 is gram negatives and volume 2 is gram positives. And it is the best reference of all of them. And so anybody can use it. Remember though, it has a lot more information than you need, but it does have almost everything we do in it. So you can use it. Overall, the best reference of all of them is the 8th edition. That's where I would start if I were you. For both gram positive and gram negative, the 8th edition and systematic are extremely good. The 7th edition is online. So you don't even have to go to a library to get the 7th edition. And to find it online, you go to Unknown Paper on the old website and click down at the bottom of the page, see an example paper. Then in the upper right hand corner there it says PaperRevB's Determinative 7th edition online. So you can get your reference and the information to make your table out online for 7th edition. What is 7th good for? It's good for gram positives and gram negatives. It's what we would call a C+. While the 8th edition is a B+, the 7th edition is a C+, and the 6th edition is a C- book. So the 6th edition, which is this one here, 6th edition is a little bit difficult to use because the index, this is the first time they put an index in it, but it's a C- book for both gram negatives and gram positives. So for gram positives, you're going to be rather limited in what kind of references you can use. You'll get an A. If you've done 8 hours and you don't turn in a contract, you'll get a B. If you've done 6 hours 6 to 7 hours, you'll get a C. And if you've done less than 5 hours, you'll get a D in Micro 40. So Micro 40 is pass-fail. Could you move up to one of these seats close in? Whose book bag? Get it out. Chairs are for people, not book bags. All right, so almost everybody has done at least 4 hours of Micro 40, so that should be, how do we tell? This sign in. So if you came in late before you leave today, don't forget, sign last name, first name, your lecture, section number, and the time you arrived. And then on this, if you've done a checker, I need to sign with a Sharpie on the inside cover of your lab record book. If you're not a checker, you need to have signed in with Naira and done at least 10 hours with her. If you haven't done 10 hours, you need to put a contract that you will complete your hours before the second week of fall semester, and everybody must put in their final exam packet that's taking Micro 40, the take-home final exam. And to find the take-home final exam, probably the best place to get it, there are two places to get it, but one of them doesn't print very well. If you go to the old website, and you go down here to final exam and notes for Micro 40, click on it. That will tell you what to do. There's the little lecture that you have to see, which by the way will help you on the final exam, because that very same lecture, similar to it, will be in class and before the final, and will be on the final. And then here's a little instruction about how to use our autoclave. And then here's the test. Click on the test, print it out, fill it in, and put it in your final exam packet. And that takes care of Micro 40 final exam. The alternative way to find this, you guys can share. And I wouldn't share with her either. She doesn't often shower. Could you set it on the second row at the end? Huh? Oh, okay, what? Because I'm in the middle of class. Well, there's a Micro 40 sign.
But there's one on.
Have you done any of it? Okay, so, what you probably best thing to do is
We can ask her. But there is one on the website. Exactly.
the instructor. Oh. Oh, you're talking about the microphone. Okay, all right. Just put the microphone. Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about the unknown paper today. Yes.
I don't have paper.
See, that's too bad. Here's one. All right, so first we're going to talk about the references that you need, and somebody's got my 9th. Who's got the 9th? Who's got the 8th? Who's got the 9th? There it is. All right, would you hold it up? This is the 9th edition. It's the latest one of Berge's determinative. One good thing about it is that a lot of information is in tables, which makes it very easy to transfer to your table. What's bad about it is to go to our website, go down to M40 Final Exam Explained. This tells you about it. This tells you the purpose and the theory. This tells you how to use our autoclave. Same thing as the other one. and then you print out the final exam at the bottom. You can cut and paste it if you wish. Either way is fine, it's just it prints out a little bit better on the other one than on this one. But again, it doesn't matter which place you go to it. So does anyone have questions about Micro 40? Yes?
I've emailed her twice in the past 2 days and she hasn't replied. I came today,
Yeah, she should be here between 9 and 4 today. If there is a teensy-weensy little problem, I don't know if I should say. Myra's had a cancer diagnosis and she's been under treatment, and sometimes the medication makes her sick, and so she doesn't come. So if you keep a copy of your emails, and if you do it like 4 times and she still doesn't return, then just send me a copy of that in your final exam packet, and I'll give you credit for it. But don't tell her I told you this stuff, because it's personal. All right. Anyone else have a question about Micro 40? All right, so make sure you sign in today to get credit for that. And make sure you're sitting next to someone, because I'm going to hand out some papers from a previous term for you to share. And would you sit next to her? So you two share number 1. Notice they're numbered. I want them back, little thieves. Okay. Okay, so I guess